The past few years, Minecraft and its yearly updates have been shrouded in controversy. From caves and cliffs being split up into 3 different delayed updates, players believing they were overpromised on updates like 1.19, and then more complaints surrounding the newer and more lackluster updates like 1.20, it's undeniable that there has been a rift in trust between Mojang and its players. That being said though, the Minecraft player base can almost unanimously agree that 1.16, the Nether update, was as perfect as it gets. There was no drama, no controversy, and no issues. What happened? 1.16, the Nether update, released in mid-2020. At the time, the Nether was one of the 3 features players wanted to receive an update the most, just behind a cave update and just above an end update. If gone wrong, Mojang could have faced some serious backlash, just as they did with the overpromised Caves and Cliffs update, which was split into 3 different versions. But not only did they not overpromise and then underdeliver, but they damn well hit 1.16 out the park. The best way to illustrate that is through ancient debris and netherite. Ever since Minecraft had a survival mode, diamonds have been iconic, considered the creme de la creme, the epitome of Minecraft tools and gear. We all remember that first time we found diamonds and the immense excitement brought with it. Diamonds had become an extremely nostalgic and cherished item in Minecraft. People were concerned that upon the announcement of a new high-level material above diamond, that diamonds would become useless or lose their allure. But Mojang handled it perfectly by keeping diamonds useful and requiring diamond gear before upgrading to netherite, which the community thought was a very well-designed concept. And not only was it well designed in that it didn't default diamonds to being useless, but ancient debris was also implemented very well. When I first updated my world to 1.16, I remember going to the Nether, flying to new chunks and creating a huge line of TNT to blow up netherrack and reveal ancient debris. Upon doing so and going through the remaining ruins in search of debris, it somewhat reminded me of the first few times I entered a deep cave in search of diamonds. The entire process of getting ancient debris was fun and well thought out. The new biomes added in 1.16 also provided a more visual and environmental update to the Nether. The Crimson Forests and Warped Forests gave the Nether a more alien-like, alive feel, with their distinct colours fitting the Nether's theme perfectly. Basalt Deltas, a more rocky and volcanic-like terrain, really kept in tune with the Nether's desolate and dangerous vibe, and Soul Sand Valleys with fossils really felt like a huge graveyard, hosting the remains of mobs, also fitting the theme of the Nether perfectly. The reason these 4 biomes worked so well was also because they were notably distinct. For example, remember the wild update, Minecraft 1.19, whereby the mangrove swamps were added. A major complaint players had was that the biome and overall update didn't live up to its name. That's because mangroves weren't really that interesting, they looked too similar to the swamp and weren't that common to encounter. So you can imagine new players eager to hop into the wild update and expecting the world around them to be more wild, only to find it identical and underwhelming, would be left disappointed. What made 1.16's new biome so great is that immediately upon stepping into the Nether, it really would feel entirely new. The additional biomes were present and in your face as soon as you entered the Nether. You were surrounded by them and they were awesome. It actually made the Nether feel entirely different, which was assisted by the great ambience also added with them. Let's talk about the mobs. Of course we got the hoglins, finally adding a proper source of food which can be obtained in the Nether, but more importantly, piglins. Mojang has a habit of adding, let's just say rather useless mobs that look cool, but then are almost entirely forgotten about 1 week after a new update. 1.20's camels are a great example. They are just a worse version of the horse, a mob which players already didn't really use much at all. But the mobs added in the Nether update, particularly the piglins, not only were cool mobs to fight and encounter, but had mechanics that made them useful beyond just being killed, bartering or trading. Rather than kill them, you could wear golden armor and throw them gold to trade with them, an entirely unique mechanic to the game. And the trades were actually useful rather than just being a gimmick. I remember being particularly excited that you could actually get quartz from trades with them, as up to that point, there was no way to farm quartz. In Minecraft, it's pretty clear which mobs you should kill and which you shouldn't. They normally serve a very linear purpose. But piglins could be threatening while also being neutral with their bartering, making them an actually interesting and useful mob. 2 characteristics physics, many of the newer mobs added to the game failed to be. The Strider, while not exactly useful either, was very different from other mobs in the game at the time and added to the Nether's new alive and alien vibe. Bastions were also a cool structure, which once again not only contained useful loot as well as unique mechanics like a magma cube spawner, but in general were a relatively challenging structure to visit, especially with the addition of piglin brutes in 1.16.2. And of course, we can't forget the dozens of new blocks added, all of which were very nice and useful, but I think you get the point. Okay, so 1.16 had lots of new and useful features, but so did updates like 1.18 and even 1.19. So why did they receive so much controversy but 1.16 didn't? Well, that's because the players at the time were all subscribed to TheMisterEpic, something many of you still need to do. No pressure. Anyways, to understand that, we need to look at the updates after 1.16 and why they had issues. The Caves and Cliffs update was controversial as Mojang were overconfident and unfortunately overpromised. Technically, we were meant to get 1.17, 1.18, and half of 1.19 all in the same update, that being Caves and Cliffs, but Mojang didn't realize the scope of what they had promised and had to delay features like world generation changes and ancient cities to 1.18 and 1.19, or in Archaeology's case, delayed even further to 1.20, an almost 3-year delay from its original announcement. 1.19 had a similar issue. Players were expecting more from the Wild update, like the initially planned revamped birch forests and fireflies. Fireflies were cut from the update for quite literally the stupidest reason. This is a game, remember. How this made sense to Mojang is still beyond me. And updated birch forests were delayed and still have yet to be added to the game, going on 2 years now. 1.17 and later updates all tended to overpromise on the features they would add, a good chunk of which Mojang could not deliver on. But 1.16 was not like this at all. With 1.16 we got exactly what was promised, exactly what was showcased at Minecon Live, and even more. 1.16 did not overpromise, it underpromised if anything, and thus left players satisfied and excited that everything they could expect from 1.16 and more would be available to play on update day. For every Minecraft update released since 1.16, I can easily recall off the top of my head some sort of drama associated with it, but for 1.16, I can't. I think the biggest controversy I can remember is people being upset that C418 didn't make the music for the update, but most quickly grew accustomed and even a liking to Raine's soundtracks. In addition, 1.16 was so well received because it didn't really break any pre-existing game mechanics or add things people disliked. For example, 1.19 eventually added chat reporting, which many people disliked and believed to be overbearing. 1.16 didn't do any of this. In fact, one game mechanic many people, myself included, were hoping wouldn't be altered was the bug somewhat turned feature, whereby pigmen who were aggroed at players still dropped XP when killed by the environment. This was something that even Mojang devs mentioned was going to be patched eventually, and players thought 1.16 would be the time to do it, but they didn't, meaning our gold farms above the Nether roof still work, no issue. 1.16 was an update which was almost exclusively additory, and that was perfect. 1.16 also had something newer updates intentionally don't have, at least not publicly, and that is a sense of direction. When 1.16 was announced, it was called the Nether update, and it was obvious from early showcases what it was meant to be. Players' expectations were forcibly grounded as well as clear. However, after issues with overpromising occurring in later updates, now Minecraft updates are not publicly named until long after their first announcement, with only a handful of features showcased in advance. While Mojang's reasoning for this is sound, due to not wanting to have any drama surrounding updates again, it also makes these updates feel directionless and a bit disconnected due to them lacking a more central theme. Take 1.20, the Trails and Tales update. In this update, we got the new cherry biome and trees, very cool. We got archaeology finally and pottery features, we got smithing templates, and then we got the camel and the sniffer as the mobs. All these features feel disconnected from one another and as if they were smaller features of other updates all brought together for some reason. Now, none of these features are necessarily bad additions, but it makes it hard for players to get excited when they load up their game in eager anticipation of a new update's content, only to see things are basically identical and the newer content won't be interacted with or present to them as often. The updates feel disjointed and random and particularly underwhelming. 1.16 was exactly the opposite of that. As we discussed, the update's direction was clear. The new content was immediately visible and evident when you first opened the game and began playing, and it wasn't disjointed content you would only occasionally interact with in differing parts of the world. It was easy to get hyped about the Nether update because, well, it's a big overhaul to the Nether. It's hard to get hyped about an unnamed Minecraft update with a bunch of cool but mostly minor and seemingly side features that don't really connect with each other at all. This is an issue which Minecraft is continuing to face as well, an unfortunate byproduct of their potentially diminished confidence after past update dramas. Now, 1.16 wasn't perfect. If there was one valid criticism of this update, it's that Nether fortresses didn't really change much at all. That being said, nowhere was it promised that a Nether fortress update would be included in 1.16, nor was it hinted at or shown in a preview. What we saw with 1.16 is what we got. There was little room for disappointment, and I think that summarizes 1.16 well. I hope you all enjoyed this video. Be sure to subscribe. Thank you all so much for watching.